All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to week 1 of my core and pelvic floor class. During this class, we're going to focus on building a deeper connection with our core and our pelvic floor, strengthening those using a combination of breath work and work on the floor. There will be lots of talking in this class, and lots of our exercises will be based on the ground, and a seated option is not always possible. So please bear that in mind before you start the class. All right, we're gonna jump right in. Now I'm sure, as if you've joined a pelvic floor and core class, you have a pretty good idea of what your core and your pelvic floor are, but we're going to go over some definitions just to make sure that we're all on the same page and that our understanding is all at the same level. Now, your pelvic floor, as the name suggests, is in your pelvic region, your pelvis, the region of your pelvis. It's a group of muscles and connective tissues that sits just actually inside the pelvis. Most people's understanding of the pelvic floor is that it has something to do with going to the bathroom, and you're not wrong. If you're a woman, and if you're a woman who's ever been pregnant or given birth, you might have been told that doing Kegel exercises is really important for preventing incontinence. And that's true, but there's more that we can learn about the pelvic floor. It does lots of things, so we're going to take a look. So yeah, going to the bathroom is the big one, the big function that everybody knows. Pelvic floor muscles are involved in constricting your urethra, your vagina if you're a woman, and the anal canal. Good bladder and bowel control really depend upon this function and upon the function of your pelvic floor muscles. So we're going to try and feel our pelvic floor muscles together here. So I hope you're sitting comfortably. I want you to imagine that you have a full bladder and you need to hold it in for a little bit longer and try and replicate that here. You should feel those muscles contract as you squeeze and you lift, and that's the same whether you're a man or you're a woman. That's your pelvic floor muscles working. Another little test that we can, someone joining the class, another little test we can do, imagine that you're in a situation where you need to break wind, but you don't want to seem rude, so just gonna hold it. So you're gonna squeeze and lift, so hold everything in there. And that, again, is your pelvic floor. I lift it up a little bit. Those are your pelvic floor muscles. Those are what we're working on. Other things that your pelvic floor muscles do, they provide support for your internal organs. Again, this is specifically more for women, but if you've ever been pregnant, gone through childbirth, you might have heard people talk about pelvic prolapse, pelvic floor prolapse, and that is when the pelvic floor is weakened so much that the internal organs it supports aren't getting the right level of support. If you're a person who suffers with that, you think you suffer with that currently, a pelvic floor physio is the way to go. I will talk about that more in a little bit later in the class. Your pelvic floor is also part of a deep stabilizing system, which is your core, where it also includes a bunch of other muscles. And we're going to use the analogy of a pop can is a good one. I am using, I'm going to use my water bottle. It's the same shape. So we want to think about this being our core, the can being our core. You have your diaphragm at the top, and that's the muscles that are at the bottom of your rib cage. They support your lungs. Diaphragm at the top, pelvic floor is at the bottom. At the back, so at your back, you have your multifidus, which is the muscles of your back, and transverse abdominals at the front. So that's these side abdominals. And that's your core. Pelvic floor, part of that. Your pelvic floor also responds to breathing and any changes in pressure within your abdomen. Again, you can think about that pop can, and when we're talking about pressure, the pelvic floor muscles are doing what the what the diaphragm is doing. So when your diaphragm lowers, your pelvic floor lowers, and when your diaphragm contracts and lifts, your pelvic floor contracts and lifts. Your pelvic floor is also affected by pain and by emotion. I'll tell you a story about myself here. When I was pregnant with my second baby, I learned more about the pelvic floor and a connection with breathing. And I learned that if you have tension in your jaw, that translates to tension in your pelvis. Now, obviously, if you're trying to give birth, you don't want extra tension in your pelvis. So I made my husband cue me to relax my face while I was having contractions rather than grimacing, to try and have as much I can't think of the opposite word for tension, but as the little amount of tension as I could in that area. So yeah, your pelvic floor is connected to all kinds of different things. We exercise our pelvic floor muscles all day, just through our normal daily activities. And now, while isolated pelvic floor activities can be exercises rather can be beneficial, like your Kegel, what we're going to do in this class is aim to progress so that we incorporate those exercises into like functional movements. So you're not just spending 5 minutes a day doing your Kegels, you're exercising your pelvic floor as you move through your daily life. It's definitely true that trials of being a human can take a toll on the pelvic floor, especially if you're a woman. Pregnancy and childbirth are the big ones that really affect those muscles. And also aging is a big weakener of the pelvic floor. It's not true that pelvic weakness can't be fixed. Pelvic floor muscles are muscles, and muscles can be strengthened. I want to note now that if you feel like you have severe problems with incontinence, you feel heaviness in that pelvic area, a feeling of something coming out of that pelvic area, and pelvic pain, I definitely recommend seeing a pelvic floor physiotherapist. There is a new one.
He had it when her womb was coming out.
Oh, sorry?
Oh.
Was someone talking to me or no? Nope. Okay. Sorry. There is a new pelvic floor physio opening in Simcoe. Her name is Karen. I taught her some mum and baby classes. She's a physio. She was an orthopedic physiotherapist, and she's moved into the world of pelvic floor physio. And her business is called Thrive Pelvic Physio. So that's a great resource to have. I definitely recommend looking into that if you have any of those symptoms, if you feel like you have big pelvic floor dysfunction. If privately you want to send me an email and say, I feel like this, is this what I need? Then I can let you know. Obviously, I'm not a doctor and I can't diagnose things, but I can tell you, yes, go see your pelvic floor physio. Great. So yeah, with work, we can strengthen our pelvic floor muscles, just like any other muscles, and we can build a greater connection to them. It's not too late, and we don't have to settle for a life of peeing while we sneeze. All right, I think I said it already, but lots of this class will be on the floor. A seated option is not always easy to provide, so be aware if you're uncomfortable of getting up and down off the floor. So to start with, we're going to do some Kegels. We're going to do that isolated pelvic floor exercise that I think everyone has heard of, everybody probably forgets to do. That's okay. That's going to be seated. So I don't know where you're seated, but you'll want to be kind of on a hard chair. I'm going to grab my kitchen chair and have a seat. Good. I think you can see me here. I just need my sheet. So we want to get ready. That's our first step. We want to get ready and think about sitting in good alignment. So to start with, some space between your back and the back of the chair, sitting in the middle of the chair. feet are flat on the floor. Now alignment, when I say good alignment, it's not exactly the same as posture. Posture is kind of how your body looks, and then alignment is how it works. We want to think about having your rib cage stacked on top of your pelvis, a nice straight line. First, you'll want to sit and kind of pull the flesh away from your bum here. Make sure you can feel those sitting bones pressing into the chair. We're going to think about having a neutral pelvis. So try not to push your hips forwards like this. Or you don't want to tuck them underneath you too much, and you don't want to push your bum out. You want to think about being in a nice straight line. Rib cage over your pelvis here. Another way to think about that is sternum in line with your pubic bone. So a nice straight line. We're not leaning forward, not pushing your bum out. You're not tucking your hips underneath you. Feeling those sitting bones, feet flat on the floor. So we want our breathing to flow easily and to activate all of our deep core muscles here. I want you to place one hand on your rib cage, one hand on your abdomen. And as you inhale, you're going to breathe into your hands and think about inflating your pelvic floor with air. Think about inflating your rib cage and your belly. As you exhale, you're going to notice that your hands descend as your rib cage and your abdomen deflate. And you imagine your pelvic floor deflating and coming up. So let's practice that a little bit together. One hand on a rib cage, one hand on your abdomen. Take some deep breaths. And imagine your belly and your rib cage expanding. And as we exhale, I can't think of the opposite word for expand, contract. So that belly and ribcage is getting bigger, and as you exhale, they're getting smaller. Really imagine your pelvic floor filling with air. And we'll just run through this a couple of times. You might have a hard time really feeling that expansion and contraction of your belly and your rib cage. We're going to practice this breath in lots of different positions as the weeks go on, and some might be easier for you to feel the connection than others. So let's just take 2 or 3 deep breaths together. Inhale, exhale, belly and rib cage expand and contract. We'll do one more. Very good. All right. Now step 3 on this this breathing process, we're going to learn about what we call our connection breath, which is connecting your core and your pelvic floor with your breath. Now this is really at the heart of this class. It's going to be really important, this technique. As you inhale, we're imagining inflating or expanding your pelvic floor. Almost as something to think about. Imagine that you're filling your vagina and your anus with air, or driving those sitting bones apart with air. So remember those bones that you're sitting on, driving them apart with air, filling with air. As you exhale, think about contracting the pelvic floor. So a couple of things to imagine. Imagine you're picking up a blueberry using your vagina. You can also imagine an elevator. So an elevator going up and down. That's sometimes easier to imagine. As you inhale, the elevator goes down because your pelvic floor fills with air. And as you exhale, the elevator comes up. So a few things you can think about. So let's try that. We're going to take 3 or 4 deep breaths and really think about that pelvic floor connection. The contraction part is definitely going to be a little bit easier to feel. Imagine that elevator coming up, or imagine you're picking up that blueberry, whatever sticks in your mind, whatever is easy to visualize here. So hand on your ribcage, hand on your belly, and let's try here. Big inhale. Filling that pelvic floor with air, and exhale. Pick up that blueberry. Think about the elevator. Elevator's going down. And elevator comes up. Good. Couple more. Good. One more. Big inhale. And exhale. Good. This will take practice over time. That contraction, the pelvic floor, the breathing, all of those things will link together. They'll become easier, but it will take practice. But that's what this class is for. It's for practice. I said already, it might be easier to feel the contraction part of the exercise, but the relaxation is just as important. I do want to stress that. It's really important that you can relax your pelvic floor, relax those abdominal muscles. We don't want to travel around with our abdominal muscles constantly activated because it means that we can't breathe effectively. I've been talking about expanding your belly as you breathe. If you're holding your pelvic floor muscles, if you're engaging them, contracting them all the time, you can't make that belly expand. And if you can't do that, if your abdomen doesn't move when you inhale, where is the pressure going to go? There's intra-abdominal pressure. It's going to impact your pelvic floor in a negative way. So letting yourself relax and push that belly out as you breathe, letting your pelvic floor relax, and then picking it back up as you exhale. That's really important. All right, lots of talking. We're going to do some exercises. I think we've probably got time to run through everything twice. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to jump in with before we do a little more exercise part of the class? Give you a second. All right. Going to move my chair out of the way. The chair will come back for a couple, but it's going to move out of the way for now. We're going to come down to the floor together. So let's practice getting down to the floor safely. We want to step 1 foot forward. Raise that back heel. We're going to slowly drop those hands towards the floor. One on either side of your foot. You're going to push that second foot out behind you. Come down onto all fours. Going to lower one hip. And then I'm going to lay down. Actually going to move my table a little bit closer because you're kind of far away there. Here we go. All right, so we're going to lie on our back to start. Oh, somebody jumping in. Okay, we're going to lie on our back to start with. And the first thing we're going to do is practice some of that breathing in a lying down position. So let's come down to the floor. Feet flat on the floor so your knees are bent. One hand on your ribcage, one hand on your belly, moving all the stuff out of this room. And we're going to take some deep breaths. So nice big inhale. Feel that belly expand. Exhale, feel it come down. And try and watch what you're doing. If it's tricky for me to see unless I look at the camera, so try and watch my belly here. As I inhale, it rises right up. And as I exhale, it goes right back down. Good. A little note about alignment now we're lying down. We don't necessarily want to try and touch that low back to the floor because that's picking that pelvis up in a strange way. We want to think about rib cage still in line with hips. So for me, that means I have a space between my back and the floor. You can't really see it because the rug is fluffy and I have this big t-shirt on. But I have a kind of a neutral pelvis here. My rib cage is right in line with my hips. I'm not pushing my hips up. I'm not arching my back, just in a nice straight line. This time, we're going to try some of those Kegel exercises. So contracting and relaxing the pelvic floor as we breathe. We're going to do, how many did I write down? We're going to do 4, and we're going to hold them for about 4 to 6 seconds each here. So let's take a big inhale. Expand that belly as we exhale. Pick up that pelvic floor. Contract and hold it here for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now inhale. And relax. Think about your pelvic floor filling with air. Imagine that elevator is lowering. And then exhale, pick it up. And hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Big inhale. And relax, exhale. Contract that pelvic floor, lift the elevator for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Last one, big inhale, make sure you relax. And exhale. And hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Last big inhale. Relax. Good. You can breathe normally here. We're going to do some heel slides. So staying on your back, let's pick our feet up. No, sorry. That's not how heel slides go. You keep our feet flat on the floor. And as the name suggests, we're going to slide one heel out so your leg is straight and back up. And the other. Good. Some things to think about, because we want to think about our core muscles. Pull that belly button in towards your spine just a little bit as you contract. We're going to try and take deep breaths. If you can, if you feel comfortable thinking about pelvic floor as you breathe, add that in. If it's enough to do to think about breathing and moving your feet, you just do that. Here we go. So nice big inhale. We're not inhaling or exhaling at any particular time at this point. We're just moving nice and slowly and making sure we're breathing. Good. So sliding that heel along the floor so the leg is straight, and then picking that foot back up. Good. Moving nice and slowly. Remember, we're keeping that pelvis in a nice neutral position. And we're taking deep breaths. One more on each side. Good. And just hold it there. We're going to pick our feet up now. Again, make sure you're not adjusting your pelvis too much, which I almost did. I almost rolled right back onto so my low back was touching the ground, which puts my pelvis in a strange position. So make sure straight line from rib cage to hips. They're on top of one another. Holding our feet here, we're going to keep taking deep breaths and tapping one foot and then the other. Nice slow movement. Really letting that belly expand. And contract. Good. Your feet don't have to be in time with the breathing at this point. We just want to practice breathing while we're doing these core movements. And last one on each side. Good. Relax your feet here. All right, next one. We're going to pick our feet up again. And this time, I want you to flex your feet. So we have our toes pointed, I want you to flex those feet. So pick those toes up so they're pointing to the ceiling too. We want to tap down one heel, the other, lift the second one. All the way around like that. So feet up, toes to the ceiling. Let's tap heel, heel, and then raise, raise. Good. Heel, heel, raise, raise. Try and keep breathing while you do this. Big inhale. And exhale. Heel, heel, raise, raise. Two more. Last one. Good. And place both those feet on the floor. Excellent. Where are we now? We have a couple of seated exercises to do, but first we're going to repeat those. So let's just take a moment and do some deep breathing. We're not going to do all the Kegels again, but we're going to try and connect the pelvic floor with our breathing. So hand on ribcage, hand on belly. Take a big inhale. Let that belly expand. Exhale, let the belly contract. Inhale, expand. Exhale, contract. This time, that pelvic floor elevator is going to lower as you inhale. Relax that pelvic floor. Exhale, pick it up. Inhale. And exhale. One more. Inhale. Relax the pelvic floor. Exhale. Excellent. You can keep your feet on the floor. We're going to stretch out one heel and then the other. There's always something at my feet, no matter what room I'm in, no matter where I am. Good. Concentrating on that big, deep belly breath. Thinking about relaxing and contracting that pelvic floor. Don't have to be in time with your feet. Your breathing and your feet don't need to be in time here. We just want to keep moving, doing the exercises and thinking about the breathing at the same time. Last one. Excellent. Now let's pick those feet up. Check in with that pelvis position. Nice straight line. And we're going to tap our toes. 1 and 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Don't hold your breath like I was. 1, 2. Last ones. 1, 2. Good. Stay in this position. Pick those toes up so they're pointing to the ceiling, and we're going to step heel down, down, up, up. Good. See if you can inhale as you lower your feet, and then exhale as you pick them back up. One more. Good. And let's place those feet down flat on the floor. Good. Floor exercise is all done, so we're going to come up to feet safely together. Walk your feet over to one side and then flop those knees so you roll onto your side. Take that top hand, push yourself up nice and slowly because we were on the floor for a while. So bring yourself up to sitting, and then from here, turn yourself onto all fours. You can use your chair, the sofa, or a table to pull yourself up, or you can bring one foot forwards, stand, nice and slowly again, because we were on the floor for a while. Push yourself up to standing. Grab your chair now, because we do have a couple of seated exercises. Just some nice easy core exercises to finish off. So let's sit nice and tall. Let's think about sitting in our good alignment. So rib cage over hips. Let's pull the flesh away from your bum. So you really feel those sit bones, feet flat on the floor. Sit up nice and tall. We're going to raise one knee and the other. One, the other. Try and take those good deep breaths. I definitely find that big belly breathing easier to do when I'm lying down. But we can make the effort here. Now let's add some hand movements. I'm going to bring my left hand to my right knee and my right hand to my left knee. So hand to opposite knee here as we rotate. Moving nice and slowly. Let's go one more on each side. Good. And relax. We're going to finish with some pelvic tilts. We're actually going to repeat these, but we'll finish the new exercises with pelvic tilts. So think about being in that nice alignment, and then we're going to push the alignment. So we're going to tilt our pelvis. A nice way to think about this is if you imagine your pelvis is like a bucket of water, is you want to tilt it so the water tips out the back, and then back so the water tips out behind you. So you're going to push your bum out. So you tip that water at the front, and then you're going to tuck your hips underneath you. Pick it back up and tip the water at the back. Maybe it's not the best analogy. So push that bum out, tuck those hips underneath you. We're going to try and keep breathing through it. We always want to be breathing, not holding our breath for exercises. That's never good for our pelvic floor. Once more in each direction. Tuck those hips underneath you. Push that bum out. Good. We're going to do the rotation with the knee lifts one more time. So put yourself back in that good alignment. Rib cage over your hips. Make sure you can feel those sitting bones. We're going to lift one foot and then the other, one knee. And then add opposite hand to knee. One more on each side. Here's one and two. Good. Another round of pelvic tilts. Sitting in good alignment to start with. Let's stick that bum out behind you. And then tuck your bum underneath. Push it out. Tuck it in. Push it out. Tuck it in. Good. Taking deep breaths. Once more in each direction. Very good. And you can relax. Have a drink if you hadn't had a drink already. We are at the end of the class. So thanks very much for joining. I hope you enjoyed. I know we kind of repeated what we did last week, but hopefully that was a good time. Please let me know if you need anything else explained. If you have any questions, you can pop it in the chat. You can speak up and let me know what you think. You can send an email, you can email Abby, you can tap in the little feedback form. But yeah, we love to know what you think. Otherwise, have a great day. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you, Hannah.
You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. See you again.